rápido, no te sabes poner el pie. Lo ensayas rápido, no te sabes poner el pie.
Welcome once again to Civil Discourse Now. I'm Mark Small.
Good morning, Mark. Small, my name is Paul Ogden. I'm still getting used to this new introduction thing.
I know it takes a while to...
It does. Master it.
We are coming to you streaming live on April 21st, 2012 from Big Hat Books at 6510 Cornell Avenue. It's in the Broad Ripple area of Indianapolis. Paul, do you want to tell the folks about the show and also give a disclaimer?
Sure, Mark. The show is Civil Discourse Now. It's a show that talks about local, state, national, and international issues. We're trying to bring a civil discussion to the issues where people aren't talking over one another and where we're having rational, hopefully intellectual discussion about the issues. Disclaimer, I'm a candidate for Marion County Superior Court Judge as a Republican. The primary will be in May. In fact, I'm dressed up today because I came from an event. I am under the canons of judicial ethics. There are some rules that apply to judicial candidates, and one is that you can't make a pledge or a promise to support a particular person. Well, that too, actually. A position during a campaign. So I will refrain from doing so.
Okay. Our guests today, and our topic is about the 5th Congressional District race here in Indiana. Our guests are Tony Wong, who's a candidate for the 5th Congressional, for U.S. House of Representatives from the 5th District here in Indiana, and also Matt Stone, who has been a guest on here 2 or 3 times before.
We could get another candidate.
You could just refer to me as senior political analyst.
Oh,
I think that's a fancy term.
You're a little young for a senior.
No, I think that shortened my lengthy resume into one little 3-word.
And you do a blog.
That too.
And what's your blog?
I write at indiestudent.blogspot.com. I'm also a contributor at indiepolitics.org.
We're talking about the 5th District today. We're going to talk about various aspects of the election, but there are 7 Republican candidates running for the seat that was occupied by Dan Burton, who decided to retire kind of at the last moment, I think, to kind of jab it to the rest of the party. There are 2 Democrats running in the primary against each other. Tony is one of those 2 Democrats. I invited both Tony and Scott Reske, who's the other candidate, earlier this week, and I know that's like last minute, and my bad on that, but we were putting the show together. The campaign chairperson for Scott Reske's campaign said that she would appear on the program. I had contacted Tony then subsequently to that, called her and said that Tony was going to be on the program. Then she told me yesterday that she couldn't be on the program, her candidate couldn't be on the program. I understand that a campaign chairperson appearing on at the same time as a candidate, an opposing candidate, would put that chairperson possibly in a difficult position where they couldn't answer certain things or address issues. It was a last-moment invitation, mine not intentional faux pas, and I can understand her not appearing here. I suggested to her, though, that the candidate, State Representative Reske, could appear on here, but she said that the schedule is such that he couldn't. So, Tony, you're here. You're a candidate. We're going to talk about your issues later, in a later segment. Tell us about you.
Okay. I'm Tony Long. I'm from Kokomo, Indiana. I've been married to Vicki, my wife, for 42 years. We have 2 children and 3 grandchildren. I have a background out of labor. Started in Delco Electronics in 1973 and was elected as a local union representative where I served for 19 years, 3 terms as bargaining chairman of that local 292, representing the workers at Delco Electronics. And then in 1995, I went to work for the UAW International Union, where I negotiated contracts throughout the state of Indiana at about 50 different facilities. So I've got a lot of experience with labor and business throughout the state of Indiana. I represented both public and private sector employees. And I've seen firsthand the devastation of the loss of jobs in this country. And the reason I'm in this race basically is we need to rebuild the jobs in this country. We need to create an atmosphere where business wants to reinvest in America, and we have to create jobs. And that's the reason I'm in this race, for jobs. And my issues is jobs, and we've lost too many jobs to unfair trade. So I'm on a mission to restore jobs in this country, and that's the reason I'm running.
Well, and we're talking about the 5th Congressional District, and that covers several counties that includes part of Marion County, extends north of Kokomo.
It's Kokomo. Howard County is as far north as it goes in Grant County, and there's only about not even a half of Howard County. It's the eastern Howard County that's in the 5th District. Before, there was almost the entire county was the 5th District, with the exception of Center Township, which was in the 2nd District, and Joe Donnelly's district. But now they've taken and they've separated it. US 31 pretty much is the dividing factor, and everything east of US 31 goes to the 5th, everything west goes to the 4th District, and it runs over to Grant County, and then due south from there.
And Dan Burton occupied this seat in Congress since 1983.
For a 30-something years.
It's like 32 years, and he was not a party favorite when he first ran. Never.
He was in the State House before he went on to the.
Yeah, he was running against the party favorite and beat him. And I can't remember who it was. Might have been Evans.
I think it was.
In an upset. What's Evans' first name? I can't remember.
I've forgotten.
But anyways, but Dan Burton. The point is, Dan Burton has been there for a very long time. And it's only been since 2008 when he got his first primary. Democrats have run in the past and haven't really posed a serious threat. It's kind of interesting because
the one guy made Comedy Central a lot.
Yeah.
The cross-dresser. Was he a cross-dresser or was
That's something like that.
I'm sorry. I don't want to offend the cross-dressing demographic of Civil Discourse Now, but. I guess don't think about
Bobby Kern.
It's Bobby Kern.
Yeah, Bobby Kern.
And he's running for himself?
And he also has the last name Pavago, but he switched to Kern.
But in 2008, John McGough challenged Dan Burton in the Republican primary. In 2010, there were like 3 other challengers along with McGough to Dan Burton. Dan Burton kind of edged out with 30-ish% of the vote. And in 2012, there were 4 Republican challengers before Dan Burton announced his retirement, and after his retirement, 3 other challengers leapt into the ring. Only one of them being really a major challenger, being Mayor Wayne Siebel.
And the way in which there's an event in there that took place, and that was in 2010. The congressional districts were reconfigured by a Republican state legislature that also had a Republican governor, and that meant, from what I could see and what I understand, they wanted to do the best job of gerrymandering they could and minimize the number of Democratic congressional seats that came out of Indiana.
That's true. The 5th District, when Burton occupied it the last couple terms, is probably one of the most Republican districts in the entire country. So what the Republican legislature wanted to do in 2010, just like the Democrats wanted to do in 2000 when they had control of the State House, is make the 5th District a bit less Republican, so the surrounding districts could be a bit more Republican.
And they carved off a part of the southeast section of the district as it was, and those were precincts and wards that were largely for Burton in the prior primary, and they cut off the northern. There's like a finger going up off the 5th District up into Huntington.
And they also added it used to be just a little bit of northern Marion County was in the 5th District, and now a whole chunk of northern Marion County, which is important to note. Dr. John McGough actually lives in that area. I think he lives in the Lawrence area. And now, so not only did they cut off some parts of it, but they added a bunch of stuff that's very friendly to John McGough's campaign.
Well,
and not so.
Well, you said it's aimed at John McGough. I'm not sure that's entirely correct, because there are a number of candidates who benefit from the northern suburbs. Susan Brooks being one of the candidates who benefits from the northern.
But at the time, Susan Brooks wasn't really running in 2010, but everyone kind of knew John McGough was going to run.
They wanted to get rid of Burton.
Yes.
And another important part about the demographics, though, is that Lawrence has a mayor who's a Democrat, and that's not a solidly Republican area. And
Pretty Republican. I have to screw up pretty badly.
And the last Republican mayor kind of did that, didn't he?
I'm not going to say that.
Well, but they
the fine people of Lawrence.
But also, Hamilton County is not so pro-Republican as it once was. There have been a lot of people who've moved up there from Marion County to indicate demographics, if not ideology, it would be more favorable to the Democratic Party.
According to the census came out, of course the census doesn't measure partisan affiliation, but the number of minorities has really gone way up in terms of the suburbs, especially Hamilton County. That's not and a lot of minorities tend to favor Democratic candidates. I would assume that the numbers have moved. Though I haven't really seen the county numbers to see that they've changed that much.
I know blogger Greg Purvis, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, who runs the Hamilton County Politics .blogspot.com blog. He said he's been pushing that for a while. I don't know how reliable that is, just because I'm sure the number of working people in Hamilton County has increased because so much business has opened up, especially with these low-wage hourly jobs for hotels, for restaurants, for retail. But then again, those people are also less likely to vote. So maybe if you get a really watershed election year, like in 2008 with Obama and a lot of the Democratic Party, those people would get out to vote. And a more meh year like 2010 or what could 2012 be, their vote might not be as reliable.
Okay, but just a second. It was kind of like, well, okay, the demographics are such that those people are more likely to vote Democratic, but then they brought in all these jobs, and you're talking about jobs that they brought in are basically food and service industry jobs. I mean that's hospitality. In other words, they're lower wage with no bennies. And they brought those in, but those people aren't going to vote.
I'm not saying they're not going to vote, but if you look at the electoral politics, for better or for worse, and I think it's for worse, the lower on the pay scale, the less likely you are to vote, because 9 to 6 or whatever, that's probably when you're working. Or you're picking up kids from school, or you have other things to do in your life besides go to some precinct that you may or may not know where it is and go vote.
Tony, what do you perceive in terms of the demographics of the district?
The demographics of the district is more favorable now to a Democrat than they were. You've got Madison County in this district now, which wasn't before. And and I agree with you. I think that Hamilton County is more Democratic than a lot of people think. Obviously, you'd still have to say overall it's probably a Republican county, but I think that there's been a swing. There's more votes now that could potentially be for a Democrat, and I think the northern part of Marion County could potentially be a benefit to the Democrats. So I think the demographics is improved. It has to be an improvement. Unfortunately, if all of Howard County was in the district, which you can't look back, it would even be more favorable for a Democrat.
But in 2008, when I saw the returns coming in early in the evening, I was downstairs smoking a cigar with the wind filter, and I came upstairs, and we'll be back in just a minute. This is the end. I'll finish that story. We'll be back in just a minute with the second segment.